You are listening to Proof Text, a GlossaHouse podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out GlossaHouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
And welcome to this week's episode of SLA Insight. My name is Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and we're continuing a series on language output. In the previous episodes, I've been doing a lot of theoretical background work on output, talking about the mental processes that are involved in producing output, talking about the different ways that output can contribute to language acquisition. So in this episode and the next few episodes, I'm going to look at some more practical ways to incorporate output, to encourage output in the classroom with your students, specifically through asking good questions. Today we're going to start pretty basic, but in the upcoming episodes we're going to talk about some more complex ways to do that would encourage output. Now, in a previous episode, I talked about different types of drills that can be used to elicit output from the students. The first is mechanical drills, and I'm actually going to be skipping that because it seems to have very little value for promoting language acquisition. Mechanical drills involve only one right answer, and the student does not need to attend to meaning in order to successfully complete the drill. So they can do it without knowing what they're saying. This kind of rote memorization of paradigms and dialogue and so on is really not going to be the most beneficial, especially if they're not paying attention to the meaning encoded in what they're producing. Because again, comprehension, it leads to acquisition. Acquisition is a byproduct of comprehension. So we're going to kind of skip mechanical drills. What we will focus on today will be meaningful drills. In meaningful drills, there's still only one right answer, and pretty much everyone knows what the right answer is, but it's meaning-based, and the students have to understand the question and the answer in order to successfully complete the drill. And so here, we're going to talk especially about asking good questions. In English, we talk about the 5 W's and an H: who, what, when, where, why, and how. In your language, whether that be Hebrew or Greek or Latin or something else, make sure you learn and know the major question words for your language. Is it me? Is it ma? Is it ti? Is it tees? Make sure that you can use those and do it well. So for meaningful drills, you're going to be spending a lot of time with the question words who, what, when, and where. Those are going to be the most useful for meaningful drills. The why and how questions will lend themselves more to communicative drills. They tend to be a little more complex, and so we're going to look at those a couple episodes down the road. Now, you need to be very careful with your question words. Be sure you know not just what they are, but how to use them and the grammar that goes with them. So, for example, Hebrew has 2 words for where, and you have to know when and how to use them because they are actually used differently. They're not interchangeable. So that's one example. Another is certain question words may require certain case endings. Know what those are going in. Do your homework so you're ready to present this to the classroom. So for today, I'm going to focus on what questions. The first W, the what, it's very basic, it's very simple, and it's going to elicit usually a 1 to 2 word response from the students. It's great for description, it's great for review, and for vocabulary building. Now, a couple words of caution before we move into a few more specific examples. I want you first of all to remember that input precedes output. So most output activities are going to be review activities of some form. The students are going to be producing things that they've already been exposed to. Output activities, output drills are not the place for introducing new material. It's for reinforcing and for encouraging depth of learning. So again, when you get to the point of output, make sure you've already done your homework with the students on input before the output. A second word of warning here is that you need to do more repetition than you think you need. I would say at least 3 times with each example, but these don't have to be 3 in a row necessarily, so to keep it from being too redundant. But you're going to need to cover the material multiple times over to make sure that each of the students is understanding and following. And this is related to my next point. You're going to need to be doing a lot of comprehension checks. It's really important if you're doing classroom interaction in the language to make sure that everybody is following and everybody's on board. And this is going to require some good questions. Now, you can certainly be asking, do you understand? And teach that early and often. But you may want to go beyond that. And these question words are going to facilitate your comprehension checks along the way as well. So now, using what in Hebrew, in Greek, in Latin, how do you use it to elicit output from the students? On a very basic level, you can just start with, what is this? Maze. Teste tuetu. How do you, what is this that we have in front of us? It's a sheep, it's a dog, it's a house, it's a man. And again, you're going to elicit a single word answer, but it's a great place to start. You can then expand that with, say, some adjectives. This is a white sheep, it's a black sheep, it's a big sheep, it's a small sheep. And in early stages, you can offer an either or option. You can say, what is this? Is it a big sheep or a small sheep? And that will encourage them to follow you, to mimic what you have said, hopefully with the correct answer. Another expansion on the what is this is to use a genitive construction or a possessive construction. What is this? It's an ear. Well, it's my ear. What about this? What is this? Well, that's Joseph's ear. What about this over here? Oh, that's the ear of the cow. And so you can expand your what with a little more complexity, giving more than just a single word answer, but a descriptive or possessive to go with it. If we continue on with a little bit more complex, we can talk about what is your name, not just what is this, but what is your name? And this is something you might even bring in the first week of class. What is your name? And it's something everybody can answer, not necessarily in the language, it might be in English, but they can listen, but then expand on it. What is his name? What is her name? So asking good questions, and you don't have to require them to give you a full sentence, but at some point you may want to say, his name is, so on, fill in the blank. Again, building on things that they know already, but start small and then start adding and expanding on what they can do. If we continue in complexity, we can look at, for example, prepositions. You throw in a preposition. What is on the table? What is under the table? What is next to the door? And so that's going to make them process the preposition, even though they themselves may not be ready to produce it yet. But they can still keep it in the language, and they're going to be answering, again, with 1 or 2 words, depending on what you're looking for. Moving on into even further complexity, we can take the what questions into verbs and verbal forms. So you can put up a picture or a video and say, what is she doing? What did he do? And so then the answer is going to be much more complex. We're not looking for a single noun. We're looking for a verb, and preferably a verb conjugated in the right form. So the what questions can move us into verbal forms and reinforcing and, again, reviewing verbal forms that they have already learned or already been exposed to. And then another complex way to do it is another what question. What do I have? Which in Hebrew can be more complex because there's no verb for that. It's a preposition plus the person who possesses it. Literally, what is to or for him? or for me, depending on how you do it. And so that can start exposing them to this, what seems to be a difficult construction for English speakers to grab onto. So what do I have? What does he have? What does she have? Now, as I'm describing these different questions, different ways of approaching it, different ways of presenting them to the students, I'm assuming a few things and some resources that you're going to need to collect ahead of time. One, you're going to want to have some pictures, photos, diagrams, things that you can point to and say, what is this? Or who has this? Or what is she doing? Those are the kinds of things that you want to collect and have at hand ready for these types of question activities, output activities. Another thing would be items, props. I'd love to take in a bag full of stuffed animals. What is this? It's a cow. What is this? It's a sheep. And being able to pass them along. What does so-and-so have? Where, what is on the table? It's a fish. Those kinds of things, to be able to manipulate those objects to help the students learn. It also helps bring down the affective filter a little bit to kind of get in touch with your inner child. We're playing with stuffed animals and we're learning the language and we're having fun with it. You can also use things that are already probably in your classroom. Chairs, tables, door, the writing board, whiteboard, blackboard. You may also want to have videos, short clips, especially for verbs, actions. What is he doing? What did he just do? That kind of a thing. And don't forget the people in the room. We have classmates, we have teachers, different people you can use. What is this? It's a person. What does the person have? That sort of thing. What is next to Joseph? It's a chair. Those kinds of things. So make use of everything you have in the room to help your students produce output. Another thing that you can do, and this is also going to go a long way for bringing down the affective filter, is to introduce a game. And for the what questions, charades is a great option. If you give each student a particular action to act out in front of the class, and then say, what did he do? Encouraging them to answer and guess what that person is doing up front. So for today, I've been looking at some specific ways to promote output in the classroom, especially using what questions. These are going to be what are known as meaningful drills, in that they have one right answer, and pretty much everyone should know what that answer is, but not everyone knows how to produce it, and so practice producing it in the language. And the other thing about the meaningful drills is that students have to be focused on meaning. They have to comprehend the question and the answer that they're giving in order for it to be effective. And as I said earlier, acquisition is a byproduct of comprehension. So if they are struggling to comprehend, it's pushing them towards acquisition. A couple other principles that I covered today. Remember that output is necessarily comes after input. Input comes before output. So output has to be a review of some kind. And you're going to need frequent comprehension checks. And so in an interactive class, make sure you're using those good questions to be sure that everyone is following as you go. And make sure you've got plenty of repetition, more than you're going to be comfortable with, most likely. You're going to start feeling this is redundant, but the students need it. So make sure you get in all the repetitions to be sure that everyone's following. So these are what questions, how to encourage student language output through the use of good questions. Our next episode coming up, we're going to look at meaningful drills using the questions who, when, and where. So I hope you can join me for the next episode. And in the meantime, have a great week.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? GlossaHouse can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, GlossaHouse offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. GlossaHouse. Language resources for the global community.